So we were in Egypt actually filming a different project, but while we were there, we had our gear and knew we wanted to do a spare project as well. And I remember just praying beforehand and really feeling like God had already laid out, steps that we would just kind of step into.
Yeah, and as usual, we go into a country and we don't exactly know who our subject is going to be. That is something that we feel we need to be guided into. And we heard this person's story beforehand. We weren't sure whether she was our subject, but when we saw her, we were certain because of the amount of joy that was pouring out of her in spite of how tragic her story was. And we just knew we had to get to the bottom of where her source of joy was coming from.
The best thing about my childhood was my family. My father, my mother, and my older brother. It was a very beautiful family. At one time, God called us to go to a country in North Africa to serve Him there. I always loved my family. I always felt safe there, especially with my father. My father was the closest one for me. I remember that he used to come from work at 7 p.m. and I was like, Papa's coming, and waiting on the window, and hey, Papa came. He was very kind to me, and I loved him very much. After 10 years of doing God's call for us, my father was captured by extremists, and they said, he evangelized and things like that. It was like a normal day. We were all sitting at home waiting for my father's come. We were not prepared for anything. There was no threat at that time on us. It was very strange calls, like a call and shut down, and call and hearing shouts from people, and we didn't understand anything. He stayed at the prison for 25 days, and it was the hardest 25 days. My mother prayed, and she had the voice from God saying, the thing would happen to your husband. It's just like the thing that happened to James, where James was in prison with others, and he was the first one to be killed in the prison. It wasn't what she wanted to hear. She wanted to hear that your husband is gonna be released, and he's gonna be fine, and he was gonna be good. But this word stayed with my mother, and God didn't say anything else for a long time. We only had the chance to see him 3 times at the 25 days. So we entered there, and we saw my father. His look wasn't very beautiful. His look wasn't like my father. He was like weak and very exhausted and tired. Once he saw us closely, he started to cry, and he said, "Why did you come? Don't come again, please don't come again," because he felt very afraid. I think it was the first time in my life to see my father crying. My mother was very sad. She was in grief. He was like the hero for her and for us all. So how could she see him in this way? So my father noticed that, and he fastly said, "Don't be sad, because I'm happy. Because every time they beat me, I feel that's like the struggle of God on the cross. I feel stronger." Because they're not beating me for a crime, they're beating me for Christ. He also told her that the night before, my father saw God put his hand on her shoulder and saying, "Don't be afraid, I'm with you, and it's just all for my glory." At that moment, my mother felt very strong. One night she was praying, and God told her, "Stop praying, I'm gonna open the gates, I'm gonna get your husband released, and I'm gonna make it safe." It was like the joy day for my mother. She told us, "Go to school, return to your normal life, because it's all gonna be okay." After I came from school, my mother had a call, and it just said, "Your husband is dead." It was a crazy thing. It was unbelievable. None of us could believe that. It was like, what does it mean? What does it mean? No, it's not real. You're like you're lying. It's not real, and we couldn't accept it at all. So my mother was like in this battle inside of her. God said he's gonna release him. How could he do this? My husband is not with me anymore, and there is no hope that he's gonna come back. God talked with her again and told her, I said I'm gonna release him, but I'm gonna release him to heaven, not to earth. And he also told her, when you buy a land, you have to buy it with money. So you pay money to buy a land. But for me, when I want to buy a land, so I'm not only buying soil, I'm buying souls. So when I buy soul, I buy them with blood, not with money. I'm gonna release his blood, so it's going to flow all around the earth of the ground of this country. My father, he was in the capital city when he died, so we had the chance to go to the capital city, and we have arranged to see my father the next day, his body, and at that night in the hotel, my mother was telling the story, and she said that at that night she heard God saying to her, if you hold his hand and if you prayed with him, he's gonna take back his life. And my mother replied to God and said, God, let it be your glory. If it's your will to get him back his life, please do that. But if your name will be more glorified in his death more than in his life, then let him die. So she got the answer, and she got it that no, in his death, God will be very glorified. At that time, I just felt how honest God is and how powerful He is. When we went to see my father, it was supposed that he was in the fridge for a lot of time, so his blood supposed to be cold and clotted. So we were. My mother, I didn't see him. I see him only from far, but my mother did see him. My mother says that his body was still floating at that time, and it was a surprising thing. It's not a medical thing. It doesn't supposed to happen. But at that time, she was like. Yeah, God, your words were right. You're now buying this country by the blood of this man, and the blood is never going to be standing still. It will always be floating over and spreading over the country. When my father died, it wasn't a very surprising thing for me, because God already have told me that, but I didn't believe it. I always had the feeling like he's gonna come back. He's only in his work, and at the end of his day, he's gonna come back, and I'm gonna see him. I didn't believe that I'm not gonna see him anymore. It wasn't a fact for me. At the first, I felt like, oh God, see, I don't know myself, and I even don't know you. Who are you? I don't know you. And I felt, if you're gonna wanna be in my life, so it's my life, and I'm the one who's going to decide how it's gonna be lived. You have taken my life for 12 years, and now it is a disaster. So leave me to live it as I want, and for sure it's not gonna be a disaster like what you have done. When I came back to Egypt, like devil was saying to me, why do you live? You only lived for your father, you loved him, and all your life you have left. You have nothing, you have money, you have no money, you have no friends, you have no school, and you have no father, you have no dreams, you have no future. And the only thing that you left for your father is not here anymore. You're not supposed to live. And it was very strong. But I remember at that time, the only thing that I replied to this thought was, or my reply to this thought was, I lived until I saw that everything was taken from me. I have seen the worst things, so I have to live so I see the beautiful things. I have to live until I see the joy. I have to live to see the end of the story. It's not supposed to be end like that. But real problems that I didn't continue it right at the first. I think I have lived for a year and a half like that. I didn't have any, I didn't want to talk to God, but instead of that, God wanted to talk to me. I heard His voice a lot, but I didn't want to replay. At one night, God revealed His love for me. God said, "I'm your Father. Don't you know? Your life isn't a disaster. Your life is my will, and I haven't finished yet. You can't say it's just a disaster. You haven't seen. You don't know. You're very young. You haven't lived. You know nothing. You know nothing of my plan. You know nothing of what I'm gonna do with you. You know nothing. You can't judge me now. I'm still not finished here." Jesus came for me with the simplest way. He only revealed for me His love. It had the power to like upside down my life. After that, I started to trust in God. I started to have life. I started to talk with other people. I started to have a friendship with people. I started to have a relationship with others. I started to talk to see that there is a life. There is a thing to be lived. In God's hand, I have seen that, yeah, you haven't imagined the death of your father, but you even haven't imagined more beautiful things than that I'm gonna do. Yeah, it's not the life I wanted for myself, but it's even better. We had the battle, we had the fight, we had like the sadness and the grief, but we also had the other side that we see that there is something different. It's not just a man we love and he died. It's not like that, but it's a special death, and it's not really a death. It is a new life. So although we had a strong battle, but we also had a very, very strong peace and joy in our hearts.
The overwhelming joy that I saw in Faith brought me to write this song, Through the Desert, and it really is an ode to everyone going through difficult times, that you can still find joy in the Lord in spite of your situation.
His blood ever flowing, long after bones grow cold. His love never ending, His death and His life bright and bold. I'll find all my strength is in you. When I choose open hands and empty tombs, I give up control, all my will, my flesh and blood to you. When all of my hope is in you.
انتي بتجري في البرية وما فيش مكان تستقري فيه.
His hand upon your shoulder will be shelter in your